This is Target Score Weekly with Joey Slattery and Taylor Allen. Welcome to episode 5 of Target Score Weekly, and Taylor Allen, is historic.
It is. After 4 weeks of listening to just us two bozos talk, we finally have a guest, and a big one too, 6'11" one actually. The beast from River East himself, Chad Posthumus. Had a great chat with him. Joey and I went back and forth with him, and we brought up some pretty interesting things with him, and he's a very well-rounded guy, you know. He had some good answers for us, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, he's Winnipeg's own. He's been the face of the franchise since literally day one. He actually was coming right fresh off of a day one clothing launch, so it was great to have his time. He was so gracious with it. You're going to learn a lot about Chad Posthumus, and you're going to learn some new things. You're really going to feel more connected with him. It was a great interview, and we were happy to have him. Like we said, Taylor, it was a quick conversation of who we wanted to have first. Had to have the local legend on our podcast, so we were very thankful to have him. So stick around with that. We're going to have that in just a few minutes. But first, we got to go over the week that was, Taylor. You know, the Sea Bears coming on a high into the week, right? They had the big win against Calgary at home after losing earlier in the season in Calgary pretty handily. They clinched their playoff spot. Things were rolling. They left Winnipeg on a pretty high note, but man, did they ever fall flat in Calgary.
Yeah, I mean, when they hosted Calgary here, what was it, 2 weeks ago now, they smacked them.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they kicked the you-know-what out of Calgary. But we all have to kind of keep in mind from that game is that Calgary was playing shorthanded. They were missing some dudes in that game. And, you know, people are still kind of singing, you know, Winnipeg's praises and stuff. They kind of put that on the back burner. But then Winnipeg goes to Calgary last week. Calgary has some of these guys back, most notably Shitu, their big center, the leading rebounder in the league. And he absolutely dominates the game. And what happens? Calgary wins. So the West Division is it's a little more interesting than people might have thought a couple weeks ago.
Totally. And you know what? Like we never got the reason. We just knew it was personal reason. So I'm wondering, you know, if he also had a little inspiration on his side, because he was out of this world, man. 32 points, 15 boards, and he added 3 assists to that. Like, he just had himself a heck of a game, and he was the difference. And then, you know, Ruggsy Miller-Moore being Ruggsy, like, you know, 16 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal. Like, it was an all-around game. But there's something about Calgary, like the city of Calgary, playing on their home court that is just not doing it for Winnipeg, man. Like just to put it in perspective, the 2 games that they played in Calgary, all right, they're very similar. The first game, Winnipeg loses 97-81. The second game, they lose 96-82. So they're outscored 193 to 163. We saw them have their most dominant performance of the season that we talked about last week on Target Score Weekly. Playing Calgary at home, that was the most dominant performance we saw on home court this year. So we all thought, you know, okay, things are rolling, you know, and we talked about Glenn Yang having a big game, that game, and how he would follow it up. That was one thing that I brought up, is I want to see him do it again. He showed up-ish. You know, he had, 7 points, a couple of boards, a couple of assists, but he had 4 turnovers in the game. AJ Hess, 8 points, 5 rebounds, but 2 for 8 from three-point land. Okafor, I actually thought, had a pretty good game. He had 8 points, 5 rebounds, and he played 17 minutes and 26 seconds. He had 3 steals in that. Like, defensively, we've always talked about how great he is. But even looking at Teddy, 14 points. That's uncharacteristic for him, and no one really stepped up. I mean, Anasike, 17 points, 6 boards. You know, like that's right around his wheelhouse in terms of points. His boards were a little low, but yeah, Teddy, 3 turnovers, 14 points, and just no one stepped up.
If your team can hold Teddy to 14 points, like, your coach better be throwing you a pizza party at the next practice, because it just seems like you just expect Teddy to score 30 points every game, right? But that's something we've kind of talked about in a couple episodes now, is that, yeah, we expect him to do that every game, but he's not going to do that every game. No one could do that every game. So when these games do come up where he's held to 14 points, where he's held in check like that, can Winnipeg win? And I'm not that convinced that they can unless someone like EJ or Jelani has a monster performance, right? Which neither one of them did in that Calgary game. So, well, everyone's very excited about the Sea Bears right now, and rightfully so. But this Calgary matchup, that could be a scary one. I mean, fortunately for Winnipeg, if Calgary loses one, which we'll get into, but if Calgary loses one of these last two games of the year, it doesn't matter if Winnipeg wins on Saturday at home against Edmonton or not. Winnipeg will, finish ahead of Calgary in the standings. But yeah, I mean, if they do play Calgary in the playoffs, which there's a good chance they could, that's going to be a good game.
Well, you look at, we talked about that game with Shitu being in and, the presence he had, as we mentioned, like the 32-15, just unreal. But you look at their inside game. I mean, they've had Gilder Jr. had 12 points. Ejim had 13 points. The bigs on the other side, like Chad put up 7 and 7. 7 points, 7 boards, 12 minutes and 16 playing time. Like, that's decent output for the amount of time he was on the floor. But Shane Osiande put up a goose egg. No points, 4 boards, 5 turnovers in just 15 minutes and 22 seconds of playing time. Like that, they're, talking about the matchups and how Mike Taylor likes to, favor his matchup, plays the analytics. Analytics let him down on that one, and I don't know what the issue was, but that just wasn't working out. Osiande, for me on that game, was kind of the biggest disappointment. You needed someone to step up and, control the paint, and he really got owned.
And Simon Hildebrand with 5 turnovers as well. So I think Winnipeg had 20 turnovers that game, and Calgary only had 11. So,
and Simon had 9 points, right? And he was only 1 for 5 from three-point land. So if he hits a few more threes, that game comes a little bit closer. But no one stepped up. No one.
Yeah. And not to sound like your grade 4 basketball coach, but like when you lose the turnover battle, right? Your chances are you're not going to win that game, especially when your star player isn't having his best night either. So yeah, that was definitely a frustrating game for the Sea Bears. They did bounce back though. Whenever you need a win.
To put a cap on that, the turnovers, 20 turnovers for Winnipeg to Calgary's 11.
Yeah.
Not
there you go.
Recipe. But
no,
they did bounce back. So we go from Calgary, not great. They go from a great game against Calgary to an absolutely game that they just had to wash away and move on from, to Vancouver, where they've had a lot of success. So let's move ahead to Vancouver.
When you need a win, just call Vancouver, apparently.
Who's already in the freaking semifinals because of the playoff structure. But no, you're right. And I said in that game, I thought, and I'll say this, I mean, they did put a bit of an effort up towards the end. I mean, it got a little dicey at target time, but they did, put the final nail in the coffin when they had to, because it was a pretty big lead. I can't remember exactly what it was, but the final score was 90-79 in that game. Winnipeg wins it. It's kind of weird that they, again, this team to me is such I don't know if I call him an anomaly or what, but Nick Ward puts up 22 points, 14 rebounds. He has 4 turnovers, mind you. So, defensively, Winnipeg does great there, getting some possessions. Dwayne Otis was 19 and 6. Alex Campbell had 12 boards on top of his seven points. But Vancouver could not figure out Winnipeg, and Winnipeg, it just seems, and the thing is, it seems every time they play them, Taylor, they're getting better. Vancouver's not getting closer to beating them. It just seems every game, and this is the team they played the most. They played them 4 times this year. 4 times, and they swept them. I remember Teddy on Game 3 saying it's hard to sweep to get 3 wins against a team. Well, they went ahead and got 4. And this game was nuts. It was another Teddy Allen game.
That would scare me if I was a Sea Bears fan. That the fact that Winnipeg has absolutely owned Vancouver all year long, beat them 4 times, you would just assume that they would beat them a 5th time. But kind of like what you just hinted at right there, and what Teddy said as well, beating a professional basketball team 3 times in a row, let alone 5, that is a very, very, very big ask. And actually, as a little teaser for our interview with Chad, I kind of asked him about that. I said, Vancouver, I mean, you guys could be the number 1 overall seed in the entire league, but yet doesn't matter. Vancouver is the team that gets the bye, even though you've beat them a billion times this year. And he had a very interesting answer to that, which I will, I'll leave a cliffhanger there. You got to keep
Little
listening.
cliffhanger. I like it.
There you go. There you go.
But yeah,
But
Teddy in this game though, 32 points, 12 boards, 5 rebounds, 5 steals. He's everywhere.
he's back. He was back. Yeah.
Like what a bounce back game. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
But even more important than Teddy's bounce back, though, was AJ Hess having a big game, 18
Yes.
points. We've been, I don't want to say harsh on Mr. Hess, but we've been kind of honest. Like, this dude's got to step it up, and he's got to hit some threes and stop being so frustrated on the court. So that's the fact. If he's rounding into form at this time of year, perfect. All those struggles leading up to this, it's all good. They all wash away because that's kind of a guy too, right? Where if Teddy's not dropping that 35 points a game or whatever, AJ is one of those guys that's like sneaky, like he's a good player, right? And he's the guy that could really step up, and he could probably have a 20-something point game when everything clicks for him, but he just hasn't really had that game yet. But the last game against Vancouver, that's probably his best game or close to it of the year, so that's good news for the Sea Bears.
Well, and in that game, Jelani, only playing 5 minutes and 10 seconds, goes down with an injury. No update on what that injury is or how severe it is, but if he's out for some time, this is a great opportunity for AJ Hess to step up because your potential sixth man of the year might not be available in Jelani Watson-Gale. And here's what I'll say, though. He was 5 for 14 from 3. And I actually don't mind that at all because of the way the game was going. Put up your shots in the game. Like, I like the shooter's mentality in AJ Hess. Just keep hucking them. You know you're good. You're having a bad year, a bad season, and we know how unique this CEBL season is. Just 20 games, and you alluded to this last week. Guys in the NBA go on bad stretches, but in this league, that's a season. Right, so it's hard to turn around. The pressure mounts a lot quicker. I think these players learn a lot more about themselves in this league than they probably ever imagined because of how pressure builds up so quickly and how little time you have to turn things around. But he put up the 14 shots, and yeah, he hit a few. He hit 5 of the 14, which is good. And he had 18, but you're giving yourself a chance to get your touch back. So I'm hoping that he builds on that because another guy that had a great game, Glenn Yang, matches his 15-point high. 15, 9, 5, and 3. So 9 boards, 5 assists, 3 steals. He even had a block. I mean, he had 3 turnovers. That's one thing I'd like to see him clean up a little bit as a point guard. Kind of reminds me of like Rajon Rondo a bit. Like Rondo used to play like that where, he took a lot of risks. There was a lot of turnovers, but the risk reward was there. I don't really see it with Yang all the time. Like the turnovers aren't in situations where he's making a hard play or trying to, create an opportunity. Sometimes they're just kind of careless. But again, Hess and Yang, 2 guys that probably have taken the most heat on this podcast, have picked it up. And in that game particularly, and even from the game before, right? Like in Calgary, where is it here? Yang had 7 points, Hess had 8. So they weren't like putting up goose eggs. They were, that game was just lost from the get-go, as we mentioned. This one, though, they really came around. And, Osiande, 6 points, 2 boards and a block in just 8 minutes. I think his time was probably docked back after that first performance. But yeah, so if AJ Hess comes around, especially if Jelani's out, this is what makes Winnipeg dangerous.
I'll probably be at Sea Bears practice tomorrow. So we'll see if Jelani's practicing or not. And I'll ask Mike Taylor, obviously, for an update. So who knows? It'll be interesting to see if Mike Taylor is kind of like a Mike O'Shea type of guy where you ask him for an injury update and he doesn't give you a damn thing. So we'll see. I've never had to ask Mike about an injury update before. They've been a very healthy team all year. But the only kind of information, as stupid as it sounds, the only kind of information we kind of have about Jelani's injury is that, and maybe I shouldn't say it because this could be a good source for info moving forward, but is EJ Anosike's Instagram. So if you don't follow EJ, his Instagram story yesterday, or it might have been today, or no, I think it was yesterday, yeah, was of Jelani at the airport, and he was being wheeled around on a wheelchair, and he wasn't wearing, not that I could see, he wasn't wearing like a brace or a cast or anything, but he's being wheeled around the airport on a wheelchair, and he had some crutches that he's holding on to as well. And then it was kind of like one of those two clip slings, like the one that goes to the line ends and then goes to the next clip, if you know what I mean. The second clip this sounds so stupid, but this is all we have to go off of. Jelani is standing up, and he's getting his crutches ready, and EJ is kind of like busting his balls a little bit about it, saying, you're not that hurt, you don't need those things, blah blah blah. So as ridiculous as this is that we're talking about this, I'm thinking if one of your most important players is severely hurt, probably done for the year, you're probably not. This is my take. You're probably not making light of the situation on your Instagram story and saying, you're not that hurt. I'm thinking I could be wrong, but I'm thinking he maybe just tweaked something. They took him out as a precaution and they're wheeling him around just for him to rest up, and he'd be good to go by the playoffs. That's my very uneducated guess going off of a 10-second Instagram story clip. But that's all we got as of the second. So
first off, this has been our new segment, awkwardly and confusingly describing Instagram videos on Target Score.
Perfect. I'm your guy.
Guess what, Taylor? Guess what? We're breaking more ground today. Not only do we have our first guest, we have our first breaking news moment within the podcast. I am told that Jelani Watson-Gale is expected to play on Saturday. So your speculation seems to be on the right track. It seems like he will be good for Saturday. So the injury, probably not as severe as maybe some had worried if you saw EJ Anasike's video, though EJ did make it pretty light. But yes, looks like Jelani is going to make the recovery on time to play for Saturday. So good news for the Winnipeg Sea Bears and good news for Target Score Weekly, who's breaking Sea Bears news when it matters.
Did you get that text before I went on that 10-minute rant about EJ's Instagram?
Not before. I got it in the middle, but it was so good.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
I just wanted to let it go.
That's perfect timing, man.
Dude, you were on a roll. I was letting it happen. I said, you go, Taylor, because your speculation ended up being bang on. So really, this is a hats off to you, man. So no, I didn't get it before. I got it in the middle, but I'm a polite person, and I let you finish your thought, and I let out the breaking news, gave the breaking news the moment it deserved. So yeah, so from a reliable source, it's expected that he is playing on Saturday. So we'll wrap that up with a bow. Great game against Vancouver to bounce back from a pretty ugly loss in Calgary. I do want to say this, though, because Mike Taylor has said in the past that he believes his team does play with more hunger after a loss. Thing is, after Saturday when they play Edmonton, there's no more chances. You got to win every single game. So if you have that one bad game, there's no turning back. So that race for first is huge. We'll get back into that a little bit after why you're probably here, the Chad Posthumus interview. We're not going to hold you up any longer. We are now going to throw it to our interview with the one, the only, the beast from the River East, the captain of the Winnipeg Sea Bears, Chad Posthumus. This is kind of historic, Chad. You are our first ever guest on the podcast.
Amazing, man. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the invite. Looking forward to this all. Great setup. So yeah, here we go.
Well, thank you for joining us because I know you're coming back from an event. Can you tell us a little bit about the event? The Day One clothing line is out.
Yeah, Day One. It's kind of an event to just commemorate and I should add, really exclusive. Just the Winnipeg Sea Bears, where we came day one, and the supporters, all our fans, everybody out there that's been with us since the beginning. So guys like you that have been there right from the jump, everyone in the organization, day one, here we go.
Well, speaking of day one, kind of for day one of this podcast, Joey and I we kind of made a list of, guests we wanted to have on the show. We were kind of going back and forth who we wanted on and who we were going to ask and stuff. But our first guest, our first target, it was a very, very, very short conversation. We both kind of looked at each other like, it's got to be Chad. You got to go with the beast from River East.
I appreciate that.
So thanks for being here, man. We appreciate it. But I think the first question that I have for you, you've played pro ball for a while now. You've been to Japan, the States, a couple different stops in the CEBL. Now, of course, your hometown, Winnipeg Sea Bears. Is this the most fun you've had in your pro career? Or in a way, has it almost been kind of maybe the most stressful time of your pro career because you are playing at home?
Yeah, I'd say it's a bit of both. I've played in some pretty cool places, from the Chicago Bulls in Summer League and preseason there to playing in Tokyo and Japan. So some pretty cool, interesting places, but nothing does beat home, right? You got your family, you got your friends, you got everybody that's been supporting me all these years that finally gets to come out, be there in person. But at the same point in time, as you mentioned, that's also can be the most stressful, right? So I got to please everybody, and it's kind of hard to always do that on the court and off the court, right? But it's been great, just the support we've had, just not even from family and friends, but the community and everybody here in Winnipeg has been amazing.
How
When
does it
you
compare?
did,
Sorry, Tay, like just in terms of like the fans, like you're out there in front of, it's been over 5,000 on average, right?
Yeah,
So, like I've been to a game in Edmonton, a few games in Edmonton, but this would have been like 2019. So the crowd even there has grown. It was a great atmosphere back then. I couldn't
yeah.
imagine what it's like now. But when you're talking about, playing overseas and some of the more, I guess, well-known, longer established leagues, where does this kind of environment compare to those ones?
Honestly, the crowds. So I played in both first division and second division in Japan. And Japan, for example, they bring 3 import players out per team. So guys from the U.S., Canada, guys like myself, and then the rest are Japanese guys. But so depending what team you land on in first division, the top teams in first division are getting 10 to 15,000 people out per game. Versus some of the bottom teams in first division, you're at 3 to 4,000. And then you're looking at second division. If you're middle, bottom of the pack, you'd be getting 1,200 people out to the games. So a league like that, there's a great fan base there. Obviously Japan's huge, and basketball is one of their popular sports there, right behind baseball. Kind of like how we have the hockey thing, and now we're bringing basketball up behind that there. But the crowds there, they don't compare to just how ruckus Canadians are when you get a couple beers in them, right? I love it. I love hearing all the fans just chirping the other team, and I've noticed, especially here in Winnipeg, that's something that we do very well. Everybody there is engaged, ready to go. We're, like you said, averaging 5,000. We're 5,000 plus our team against the other team, and that makes a huge difference versus some of the other places I've played in. You might not get that crowd advantage as much in Japan, where they're just like clapping like this when you score, versus going nuts, and just giving it not only the Canadian feel but the Winnipeg feel to it as well, which is a lot of passion and just excitement, and every third person's a couch coach too, so.
Yeah.
you're a Winnipegger. You know that this is a basketball city, obviously. But when you signed with Winnipeg, did you think the atmosphere would be this electric right away? And then also the on-court product as well. When you signed with this team, right? You were the first guy to take the plunge. You
Yep.
didn't know. I'm assuming you didn't know who your teammates were going to be, right? Did you think this team would be a contender year one? Because I'll be brutally honest, Chad. When the roster first came out, I talked to some people in the basketball community, and I had the same opinion too. I'm like, they got some talent, but I don't know if they can compete right away. And here you guys are proving, me and quite a few other people wrong as well.
I think, yeah, that's a big one to answer, but the team in general. Start there. I've been talking with Coach Mike Taylor the entire time from day one, and even a couple months before, because I knew there was going to be a team here, and we were like talking about guys here and there, and he had a picture in his mind, and he shared that with me, and he's like, this is ABC at this position, ABC at this position, and so on and so forth. And we were fortunate enough to get the top pick at pretty much every position, the guys that he wanted. And you look now 2.5 months later, and all these teams, a lot of their roster compositions are completely different. Like, we're practicing our offense and defense against these teams, and it's a different team every time for some of these teams. In Vancouver, for example, they got different guys starting and on the court every time. And then you go ahead and look back at us, and we've made 0 roster moves the entire season, which is, I think, unheard of in the CEBL, unheard of in the NBA, the G League, right? So you have that vision in mind, and when it all comes together and it works out, and we're tied for first in the league right now, it's just a testament to Coach Taylor, and not only him, but the guys that he's put on the floor and in these positions to be successful.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say I had this pegged. I said that Winnipeg was going to finish their first season in first place.
Pegged,
This is exactly
Winnipeg.
how I had it drawn out, So, and that's my story. I'm sticking to it. On Mike Taylor, though, so how would you compare Mike Taylor's coaching style, going fictional here, Is he closer to Ted Lasso or is he closer to Coach Carter? Because I feel like, when we talk to him, he's very positive. Seems to have everybody's back, because we'll ask some questions sometimes that are pretty hard on certain guys' performances, and he's never a guy to double down on them. But then you see him, in those hype videos and that where he's kind of yelling and getting you guys going. So would you say he's closer to a Ted Lasso or is he closer to a Coach Carter?
He's closer to a Ted Lasso, but he'll throw a garbage can across the room when you lose. So we'll leave it at that.
That's funny. I'm just chime in for a second. That's funny you say that, Chad. So my mom actually, she's the receptionist at Sport for Life Center. Pat, say hello to her next time you hop in there. And she uses the gym upstairs and stuff and whatnot. And sometimes she'll shoot me a text. Oh, Coach, she always says Mike is such like the nicest guy ever. Such a treats her really well and whatever. But sometimes she'll shoot me a text like, "Oh, Coach Mike is really mad at the guys today. I could hear him screaming pretty loud and stuff." So, my mom's kind of been my inside source on Mike and his practices.
Such a coach that you want to play for. I mean, you talked about a few things, in terms of just keeping the same roster. Like he has that belief in the guys that he wants this team to go forward. But what makes him a coach you want to play for?
He's they would call him a players coach, right? He's a guy that puts players first. Except with the amount of practice we do and and some of the load management in a season that's this quick and fast paced. But he's getting better at that too. But he's a guy that's very supportive. Always has your best interest in for the team, right? So he's a guy that just you get there at practice and he's going to be positive and he's going to be doing everything he can to make the team better and for the team. And that's his number one goal in mind, and you get results out of that, right? He's been successful at every place in his career so far, and you go with that, right? First place in with an expansion team in a very competitive league is shows just how much that he knows what he's doing, right? And we're, like I said, able to follow that and that map that he's laid out for us and be successful with that.
I think one of the things that have impressed me the most about your season, Chad, is nothing stats related. It's when you guys are playing a team where maybe you don't match up as well against them, and they're playing small ball or whatever, and you're not playing closing out the game and whatnot. Or even if we want to go back to the very first game, you kind of get into foul trouble pretty early, and you didn't get to play very minutes that game. But yet, when those situations happen, you're never sulking on the bench. You're never sitting there not saying anything. Like you're always like the first guy to get up to, high five Simon when he makes a play, and being all smiles and kind of being the life of the party on the bench. And I mean, really, not all guys would be like that in situations like that. So, is that something you just as you've matured as an athlete, you've developed that, or is that something you've always been? Or just kind of take us through, why you've had such a positive attitude in some of those situations.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Every guy I'd love to be playing 30 minutes a game, but kind of at my age, it's 32. It's not super old yet, but it's realistic that some games I won't play in. I'm not going to match up against these smaller guys. And then, even though I want to be out on the court, it's coach put it towards me. It's the best interest of the team for some things. Like big guys like me are a dying breed for the most part. There's not too many of us left, so not every game is going to be a good matchup for me. Even though I'd love to think I could go inside and score 20 on them, it's running up and down the court with those guys and guarding the three that might be a little more detrimental than me putting 20 points in for them. But yeah, it's something I definitely learned, especially with I had a hip surgery a couple of years ago. I had an injury that I needed to get hip surgery for. So I had a torn labrum, and I had to get that done twice. So I was actually out for over a year and a half, and came from the top of the world training camp with Oklahoma City Thunder, and then realizing you have an injury that's going to hold you back and you get basketball taken away from you. I kind of like grew from that. So upon my return, I was honestly just happy to be there and be playing again, right? And it changed my perspective on the game to, hey, it's not always going to be about me, and I am here and I am a really good player, but I'm not at the shape, or I'm not in the type of game readiness that I used to be, right? So I'm not the guy that is the first option anymore. I'm the guy that's the third or fourth or fifth option even. And it's about being just character, happy for your team. And at the end of the day, without your team and without supporting these guys, you're not going to be there. I wouldn't even be on the court with them. So it's just that mentality and getting older too, right? You see all these young guys coming up, and I'm excited for where Simon's career is going to go, where Teddy's career is going to go, and not only that, but where we're going to go together, right? So it's not something that, hey, yeah, I'm not playing, but yeah, you see guys sulk, you see that happen all the time, right? But you can't play this game forever, and you want to be as supportive as you can for your team and just all these guys in general, right? It's exciting when everybody wins and you win a championship. The Miami Heat, I know somebody made the quote, but when they were making the run there this last year, and they said no one on the Miami Heat cares about playing time or minutes right now. They're just happy to be in the NBA Finals, and that's 100% right. You're not looking at guys at the end of the bench that are sulking and sitting there. It's sure it makes it a little more glorious during the NBA Finals, but they're happy to be there. They're happy to be part of the team, and they're going to support any way they can if it's not on the court. So that's kind of the way I approach every game.
When you look at your career, right? Like you said, you've had those opportunities where you're kind of knocking on the door. You're playing summer league in Chicago, training camp in Oklahoma City. You know, it's so close, right? And then something happens where it's yet so far.
Yeah.
And you know that's the thing. Like professional basketball is tough. Like those are really good accomplishments. But as a competitive person, I'm sure it's I wanted to
Yeah,
get
you
there.
always
I
want
wanted
more,
to,
yeah.
right? But now when you look at this opportunity and how it presented itself, you're coming on the tail end of your career now. Like you're closer to the end than you are the start.
Yeah.
Now you have a chance to play in your hometown. Not even just like at a tier 2 arena, but you're playing at the big arena downtown at the Canada Life Center, an NBA feel. I mean, I've been to plenty of NBA games, and this isn't far off from any of them. In
I
fact,
might
in
say
some
it's
cases, I
even
would
better
argue
than a lot of them.
I was going to say, in many cases, it's better. Like it's such a cool atmosphere, and where you see yourself right now, first place, tied for first with a chance to like clinch the first in the West rather. And you can bring a championship home. Do you see this opportunity in some ways as a silver lining to some of the disappointments you might have had earlier on?
Yeah, I mean it's everything. There's obviously been some disappointments, and kind of my younger days, even with the Chicago Bulls. I know I was a little just immature at the time, and I could have made some changes instead of like chasing money overseas and maybe gone and developed a little further in the G League, or something like that. But everything happens for a reason, and it's led me here. Even my time off and doing all that, getting back in kind of the CBL, getting that second chance, a second opportunity here. And it's been great for me. The CBL has been awesome for not only me, but for a lot of Canadians. But yeah, just having that opportunity to come home, play in front of everybody, and then take it one game at a time and put ourselves in the situation we're in now. Definitely something that's cool. Definitely something that is in reach for us. And yeah, really, really excited for the opportunity that lies ahead of us. 4 games left, and 4 games away from championship, right? And in a great position to attain that as well.
Chad, before the Sea Bears became a thing, you and we've had, I think we've done 2 interviews in the past couple of years, and I remember one of them you were saying how you were actually training for football at one point.
Yeah.
You were contemplating making the jump to football. What can you tell us about that?
That happened. When was that? That was
Around COVID, I think, wasn't it? Or
yeah,
before
just
it, maybe?
after my hip surgery, after I was coming from that, and I had an opportunity because I don't remember who reached out, the name, but it was somebody in the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and they reached out to me. They said, "Hey, you're done with your basketball career. What are you doing? You're big body, really in shape, good athlete. We've had a couple success stories with guys making a transition from football or from basketball over to football. What do you think? What do you think about maybe coming out for a workout just as an athlete, just see where you are, what you're doing?" And I was like, "Yeah." Played football in high school. Wasn't my main sport. I was kind of more on the sides because I didn't want to get hurt for basketball. But yeah, I went and did a workout in the off season with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. They liked me. We were going to talk for more, but then it never ended up panning out because I did choose to just kind of stick with basketball and get back into that right around that time. So, but yeah, funny story.
we gotta we gotta get you a lacrosse stick now, because basketball players also, or sorry, lacrosse players also make good football players. Let's see if basketball players in lacrosse can go. I feel like a guy at 6'11" with a 6-foot lacrosse stick playing defense.
I played hockey till I was AA, AAA till I was 15, 16 years old. So Could have
I
probably
think
gone
you
as
got a
far in
second career
hockey as
coming.
basketball, honestly.
I think
when
you
you
have a second
score
career coming.
and when you score 69 points in a high school basketball game, that's probably the sign that you should probably ditch the hockey
Yeah,
stick
that
and,
might
and
be
uh, stick
that
with
might be one
basketball.
of them.
But take us through that game because you're 2 years older than me, and I played basketball and stuff, nowhere near your level, obviously. But I remember the first time I heard about you was that crazy 69 point performance that you had, and that kind of I feel like that really kind of put you on the map, kind of thing. So who did you
Yeah,
play? Take us through that game, and
yeah, that
yeah,
was
so
in
obviously
high
that's a
school. Oof.
pretty crazy stat line.
I think we were a top 10 team at the time with River East, and that was I think we played Glenlawn, and they were number 2 in the province at the time, and we upset them in the semifinal of I think it was the Piper Classic tournament. But yeah, it was just everything was going in that game. No threes, hitting free throws, which is I usually hit them at about a 60-70% clip. Think I was hitting all of them then. I think I had 44 points at half or something like that. Like it was a crazy number. And then yeah, 69 points. I didn't even play the last 5 minutes of the game because we were up by like 25. So yeah, it was it was a fun one though. But
And there was still 5 minutes to spare.
yeah, I think 4 or 5 minutes, and I was coach took me out because I don't even think we realized at the time just how many I had until the end of the game, the exact amount, because they're just doing it pen and paper at the time. They're not updating it or anything online like they are nowadays. But yeah, it was a good one.
You could have been Winnipeg Wilt. You could have had 100 in
Pull
five
up the
minutes.
sign at the end of the game,
Right?
1-0 in the
Yeah.
locker room after.
Oh man,
No, it was
that's
funny
awesome.
because
Though. That's still
they
awesome.
announced it on the speaker after the game. They're like a new tournament record, da da da, da 69 points, and I was like, oh wow, there we go, that's a pretty good one.
How pumped are you, Taylor? He's not playing in the Run It Back tournament.
I saw that.
No
There's some good
kidding.
guys playing in that tournament. It looks pretty cool, actually.
I'm sweating, man. I made my return to basketball kind of last year, just kind of playing in a senior men's league, and then I got asked to play on the Maples team. Apparently, they asked Justin Duff first,
Yeah,
which yeah, I can't blame him, but he wasn't able to play, I don't think. So they asked me, and we had a practice earlier this week, and I'm the oldest guy on the team, so I'm telling everyone that I'm the Udonis Haslam of the
oh,
team. I'm
there
just
we
there
go, there we go.
for
Couple
my
minutes
wisdom
here.
and got like 3 minutes top, so we'll see how
Nice.
it goes. But yeah, thankfully championship weekend is that weekend. So you guys will probably be in Vancouver, so hopefully don't got to worry about
That's the
playing you or
plan.
Justice or anyone. So make my life a little easier.
Speaking of Vancouver, what's your favorite venue outside of Winnipeg, obviously, in the CEBL to play in?
Honestly, the Edmonton one, I think you mentioned them and their crowds, and they think that place, the Expo Center there, I think they call it the Flair Airlines Hangar now, is
Yeah.
their unofficial name for it. Holds like 5,500 people, something like that, 5,000. They pack it every game pretty much too. I know they're going to be, I think, playing some games out of the Rogers Center where the Oilers play next year, or Rogers Arena in Edmonton. And if they could make the transition over to that would be pretty cool. But they do a great job there. They pack it. Great atmosphere too. It's not as heckly and as crazy as the Winnipeg atmosphere, but it's number 2 in the league for sure.
So what's this week like for you guys, Chad? Because there's a chance that game Saturday against Edmonton for you guys won't mean a thing. Are
Yep.
you guys going to be really watching these two final Calgary games
Oh,
closely, or
for
are you just
sure,
kind of
right?
operating as
I mean, it for the West Division, all these games mean a lot, right? And for us, obviously wanting to win every game, but not only win every game, but we have a chance to, with an Ottawa loss, and an Ottawa Niagara loss, something like that. We have a chance to separate ourselves and actually become first overall in the league, right? And that's a huge accomplishment in itself. Probably obviously the biggest one you can have aside from winning the entire league in playoffs. So that's our goal now that we've put ourselves in that position is win this last game, beat Edmonton, secure that first place position, and hopefully Ottawa gets that loss because they have the tiebreaker against us. But if Niagara wins a couple too, it could be a three-way tie, and then they'll go points for and against. Because if it's Ottawa, us, and Niagara, then yeah, they'll have to calculate it out and see who and what with the point differential, because that's how they would break a three-way tie there.
Well,
Us
Niagara's
having
peaking.
the one over Niagara, and yeah, Niagara's doing really well.
They're peaking right now. Like I feel like Ottawa's had a couple of losses now. Kind of like not saying they're losing steam, but they were
Yeah,
on quite
teams
a
are they're
roll.
figuring them out, right? They put together a smaller lineup with a lot of 3-point shooting, and they're kind of living and dying by that, spreading the floor and knocking those threes down. And that's just like the NBA, right? That only lasts so long before teams figure out defense that works for that. And they had a great run, 8 in a row, but they've lost, last 2 games, and they lost pretty handily in the most recent one too. So
Yeah.
I
What's the
think
ceiling for
it's,
this league, Chad? So sorry,
sorry.
what do you think the ceiling is for this league? And what I mean by that is, Winnipeg kind of comes in, shows that you can play in an NHL arena,
Yeah.
and there are plenty of teams that are in there. Do you want to see more of that? I think now that they're seeing that it can work if it's marketed properly, so on and so forth.
Yep.
But then I look at the league on another hand and say, I look at Verdun Stadium, for instance. I've not been there, but it kind of looks like this gritty, grungy place that is kind of a cool underground,
That
kind of the
place
same
is
with
awesome to
Scarborough.
play
That's
at as
fun to
well.
play.
Yeah, like you get a bit of both, right? Like obviously we'd love to be playing out of, I think, what's it, Bell Arena or Bell Center in downtown Montreal. That'd be way better if they can get 10,000 fans out a game. But yeah, some of the venues like Verdun's really cool. That was my runner up to Edmonton, just because they have a smaller crowd. They only they get 3.5, 4,000, but they're selling it out every game as well, pretty much. And it's loud in there. That's the loudest arena in the league is that one by far. It's louder than us, but it's also a lot smaller, right? So everything's echoing and it's right there, but it gets loud in there. You can't hear a thing. And versus where ours has a lot more energy and excitement, I would say, just from the crowd and seeing everybody there and just being a bigger venue. But Verdun is pretty cool. But yeah, overall, if we can make the move to have everybody in NHL sized arenas, which we're in, I mean, aside from Niagara, and they have a nice arena alone there too, right? I think that one holds close to 10,000, so they really don't even need to move. But you start moving these teams over to some of those bigger arenas, that's the end goal, right? You're getting 10, 12,000 people out to every game, even packing some of them, get like a Battle of Alberta and Calgary. I mean, if they ever get a new arena that people don't die at or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the end goal, I think. Yeah, the stuff falling in the Saddle Dome, the roof falling apart and whatever. So
Yeah, it's like Expos Stadium or whatever, Olympic Stadium where the Expos used to play. It's all falling apart. That's right.
yeah,
They
they're doing
can
a good
use a new
job there
arena
in
for
Calgary
sure.
too, right? They only like they get a packed house there. The only problem is it's like 25 minute drive from downtown. If they were downtown, I'm sure they
Yeah.
would be doing very well as well, kind of close to a rivaling Winnipeg, right? But you gotta,
And
it's like
super bright on TV, that venue.
oh man, it's because it's the lights it's like the fluorescent ones that they have, because you got to see the puck. It's a hockey arena, right? The ice is still down there,
Yeah.
and you don't really have basketball or show lights like we do in the building we have here.
Chad, there's a very good chance you guys are going to finish first overall in the West, and in a decent chance you might finish first overall in the league itself, like you were saying. But yet, Vancouver, a team
Yeah.
you guys have beat 4,000 times this year, they get the bye to championship weekend. I know they're the host, but they
Yeah.
get the bye to the Final Four. How just kind of frustrating is that you guys didn't matter how many games you won this year, you guys weren't going to get that bye?
It kind of is what it is, right? I played on the Ottawa team last year who got the bye into the semifinals as well, and we finished, I think, 7th out of 10 teams in the league. So, I kind of got the good end of the stick on that one, and it really doesn't give you, like, yeah, you're in the semifinals, but it's almost it's a good and a bad thing. It's a bad thing in the fact that we had to wait 2 weeks to play our game from our last game last year, and we kind of knew who we were playing already. We were likely going to play Hamilton, and just the sitting there and the waiting there, it was I think it kind of messed us up, honestly, because it wasn't like, oh, we're going to go on this and win, we're at home, da 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 da. It was holy, like, we've been practicing and thinking about these guys it was almost too much, right? So the fact that we have this likely quarterfinal home game here, no playing game, We're going to be prepared. We're going to watch the game, the playing game. We're going to play these guys. And then we're going to go into it having a big win, having some excitement behind us, and bring that down over to or across to championship weekend in Vancouver there. And then you got to look at it from their side too. We beat them 4 times this year, and what do you think's going to happen the 5th? Another beatdown, right? That's the plan.
I like it. I like it. Well, you've been really gracious with your time, but we do want to end with a segment that's going to allow fans to know a little bit more about Chad, the Beast from River East Posthumus, through a little rapid fire. Are you down for that?
Sounds good.
So the rapid fire, we're going to go back and forth asking you questions, and you're going to answer on instinct, one or the other. It's going to be pretty simple stuff, but we're going to get to know you through this. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's get it.
Favorite NBA team growing up?
Lakers.
Why do you wear number 33?
I normally wear 22 or 11. The 11 wasn't available because of jersey sizing. 22 wasn't available because of jersey sizing. So 33 was the next best bet. And I've worn it once
Sounds like
before.
my high school situation. That's how I wore 33 in high school too one year. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Favorite all-time player?
Kobe.
Good pick, good pick. What was your favorite high school gym to play in other than River East?
High school gym other than home was the Tech Voc gym is really cool. They got the big bleachers on the one side and Tech Voc Invitational. That was it. That'd be it for sure.
MJ or LeBron?
If you want championship pedigree wins, MJ. If you want stats, LeBron overall, MJ. 6 for 6, right?
Good answer. I would have left the call here if you would have said LeBron. What's the favorite dunk of your career?
My favorite
that you've had personally,
of my career that I've had. Oof.
or best dunk?
Best dunk. I'd probably say what coolest was I threw it off a guy's back on an inbound and came in and dunked it ended up being on him as soon as he turned around. So that was probably the coolest.
Where was that one?
That one was in high school. That was a
okay.
cool one. My favorite one, I had a really nice putback. I ran in from the 3-point line, caught it from just outside the circle, and dunked it over the entire team one time. There's 4 guys in front of me. That was in professional. That was actually against the Niagara River Lions a few years back. So that probably be my favorite though.
Nice.
All right. Okay, another Magic or Bird?
Magic or Bird? Oh, gotta go with Magic. Just
Knew it. I knew it.
I love Bird and his game and just everything. Magic was just a lot. There was a lot more wow factor with him, for me anyway.
I like the trash talk factor in Bird, and I happen to be a Celtics fan.
As he drinks from a Celtics water bottle on cue. As a Winnipeg guy, gotta ask, Genie's Cake, are you a fan or not?
I'm not. It's not. I don't want to just make everybody mad, but it's not at all it's cut out to be. I don't know. It's not. I'd rather have some.
I'll back you on that, Chad.
Yeah.
I'll back you on that. Moving to
agree.
Winnipeg, everybody said try Genie's Cake. I thought it was okay. My wife's like,
It's
like
decent.
we had it one time.
I've
Tried it. Good.
I've had a lot of. I'd rather have Dairy Queen ice cream cake. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think it's nostalgia. That's kind of the feel I get. Okay, so I was going to say, if you like Genie's Cake, you'd be washing it down with, let's say, Gatorade. What is your favorite color and or flavor of Gatorade?
Are we talking the classics? Or are we talking just any Gatorade flavor?
I was thinking classics, but if you've got one off the grid, you go for it. Can be Powerade. Is it Powerade or Gatorade guy?
Talking classics, I got to go the lemon lime one or yellow. If we're talking my favorite Gatorade, it'd be the Blue Frost one.
Oh, Blue Frost. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That one doesn't stain if you dump it on the coach, too. So
Yeah, that's a good one. No, that's a solid one.
This isn't my rapid fire question, but did you play Hoop It Up back in the day where you could like get like a bottle of like the green like
Oh yeah,
squirt
of
bottle of
course.
Gatorade for
Yeah.
like $10, and then you could refill it the entire
Refill
weekend.
it
That
all day.
was
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. Probably got 10 of those at home.
unreal. Absolutely, yeah, that was the best.
Nozzles work on maybe two. Um,
There you go. That's awesome. Again, as the local guy, what's the one restaurant in town, or maybe several, but what's the one restaurant in town that you've been recommending to teammates when they ask you, "Hey, Chad, where should I grab a bite to eat?"
Earl's 300 Main Street. That's just it's a great place to chill, hang out, vibe, great food, great drinks, nice patio there. Lots of friends always are out and about there. So I'd recommend anyone to go kind of there, definitely.
All right. Okay. So that was our 10. I'm going to ask a bonus. Taylor, if you have one, you could ask one too. But white men can't jump or semi-pro?
Semi pro. 100%.
The only reason why I asked that is because you had one of your outfits walking into the to the gym was the white men can't jump T-shirt.
Yeah.
I really respected that. Though I think I respected your dad's Jackie Moon outfit for the national broadcast.
I was gonna say you gotta add that one in. That was I had to have that one out there. That was actually a Halloween costume of mine that I wore it at the Oklahoma City Thunder Halloween party. Circa
Oh, that's
2017.
Nice.
Who was at that party?
Everybody, Russell Westbrook, Mello, Paul George, that was that year. So all those Steven Adams, all those guys, yeah. Jeremy Grant.
Who had the best costume?
We had a stacked team. Funny enough, as we go back to White Man Can't Jump, Nick Collison and Russell Westbrook wore the White Man Can't Jump outfits that year. So
Nice.
all come
That's
together.
awesome.
What did Mello go as? Do you remember?
What was he? He had a crazy costume. That was Mello. I don't remember if it was Mello or Paul George, but one of them was the White Walker King from The Walking Dead. And I think it was
That's a
Mello
badass.
actually, and it was full everything. It was crazy.
Oh,
Easiest Halloween costume, just go as Mellow, just wear your hoodie
Yeah.
right up to the pull down the eyebrows and boom, easy
100%.
Halloween
Right on,
costume
there you
hack
go.
right there. My final rapid fire question: how often do people? How
Peachel.
often do people mispronounce your last name or
They,
spell it
uh,
incorrectly? I guess.
They mostly just ask me beforehand now because posthumous, posthumous. I've gotten all of them right. But honestly, it happens less often because people are more inclined to just ask beforehand than they are to just butcher it, right? So
nice. Well, that concludes our rapid fire segment. Thanks for that, Chad.
no problem. Appreciate it. Some good questions there.
So we won't hold up any of your time. Thank you so much for being so gracious with your time. This has been awesome, and thanks for being the first guest on
I
Target Score
appreciate it,
Weekly.
man. It was a great opportunity here. You guys are awesome as always. So it's great to connect. And yeah, let me know when you want me back again. Maybe 100th episode rekindle, right?
Man, there's so much stuff we didn't get to, so we're definitely going to have you back on the podcast.
Part two, 10th
Hopefully in the
episode.
off season. Love it. I love it. Awesome.
And now you got to
Chad.
spread
Okay.
the word around the locker room that we're not total goofballs and that so, get some of your teammates on. So
There we
keyword
go,
being
for
total.
sure. Yeah, let me know. I'll help hook it up best I can.
awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Okay, thanks again, Chad.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Take care.
Man, he's such a great interview. Like, what a good dude.
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, I love talking with you, Joey. It's been great and all, but having the man himself, the captain of the Sea Bears, the local guy, 6'11", the first signing ever, the guy from day one, Chad. Couldn't ask for a better first guest than that. And I was
Sorry,
just saying
this
we
is-
have many more in the works too. Where I think we're really excited about some of the other people we're talking to, and some connections we're kind of working on, some strings we're kind of pulling. Not even just Sea Bears related guests as well. So should be exciting times ahead for Target Score Weekly.
Probably the best case scenario is having Chad Posthumus on a remote interview where he has his own camera set up on himself, because if we were in a studio, I don't know how we would get him in frame at 6'11". So Yeah, another win for us. But no, very, very excited about this season. He talked about that excitement, how special it was, and it was really cool to hear his his take on the year. I really liked your question off the top, actually, about like the stress. I don't think we really give that a lot of attention. We think how great it is to play in your hometown and not really thinking of the stress that comes with trying to sell a team that didn't exist, right? Like, I mean, he's part salesman before the season begins. And no, that was great. He was an open book. We'll definitely have him on again. I'm looking forward to that. So, yeah, thanks again to Chad for joining us. But, yeah, as we look ahead to the week ahead, one last game. And the excitement's there, too. The pre-sale begins this week for the playoff games. It's either going to be August 4th or August 6th, depending on how it plays out. And this game against Edmonton might be a big one. Now, Calgary has 2 games left. If they lose one of those games, number 1 in the West is locked up for the Sea Bears, and they will host the quarterfinal for the berth to the championship weekend. If not, though, this game kind of means everything against Edmonton. They beat Edmonton last time they played them in Edmonton. It was a close game, 99-95. Last time Edmonton was in Winnipeg, though, that was the first terrible game we saw them play on home court. It was I believe it was their first loss, and it was ugly. It was 97-68 was the final score in that one. So I think a lot of people are hoping there's, that sour taste is still in their mouth. This is a team that remembers each and every game and each and every loss particularly and wanting to get back at it. So I think they're going to be inspired. But as we talked about earlier, Taylor, before the podcast, we were chatting about the importance of this game. And I said, I do not want, if I'm the Sea Bears, I do not want to go to Calgary at any point. Yes, you're hosting a game either way. So there's a playoff game in Winnipeg, whether it's the play-in game or the quarterfinal game. Difference is, if it's the play-in game and they win that, they have to go to Calgary where they have not played well. So I think... I'm not usually a guy that's about, having to finish first, get to the playoffs, whatever happens, happens. But this playoff structure is so different. It's win and you're in, lose and you're out, one and done. And their record in Calgary, I would be scared blankless to go out to Calgary one more time and try to redeem myself, especially after the last performance.
I'm actually really curious how they would handle Saturday if the game doesn't mean anything. Because if Calgary loses one of their last 2, like I said before, this Saturday's game is meaningless in the standings for Winnipeg.
Yeah.
So how would they handle that? Are they still gonna go with their starters? Are they still playing these guys 30 minutes?
Well, here's the thing, right?
That's a tough question, right? Like, how do you handle that situation? So I'm kind of interested about that.
I'm interested for a couple of reasons, because I think the energy is going to be there because they've already sold out this game and the whole lower bowl's open. So the final attendance is going to be in and around the record-setting attendance from game 1. They might actually beat that record in the last game, which they set in the first game, which would be a cool full circle thing in its own. But there are a lot of guys. We talked about AJ Hess, and taking those shots. Percentage wasn't great, but he's shooting them and he's starting to hit them. I would play that guy all game. I would, if I don't have to put my starters out, I would play Teddy until Teddy says, no, I'm good, and try to monitor that. Like, you don't want him getting hurt in a meaningless game, but I know Teddy wants to play. EJ too, but limit their minutes. Chad talked about that load management thing with Mike Taylor's being an improvement throughout the season. I think this is a big one. And you want to get the other guys hot going into it too. The AJ Hesses. If Jelani has to work out some kinks with, the whatever he had happen to him, then let him do that. But this is a time for them to let guys that have struggled find their touch one last time, try to build some momentum into the playoffs and toy with the different plays or, sets that they want to go through just to make sure they have it in a competitive field to have in their back pocket. I think you're going to see a lot of back pocket plays being run, transitions maybe being held back a little bit because they want to run over some things with a proper competitive defense. So I don't think it's meaningless. You're going to see good basketball. And the one thing we've seen with this team is they are entertaining, not always positively. There's been some bad performances that, really draws the drama out of you or what's what I'm looking for? The feelings out of you, right? Whether it's positive or negative. But I think this game is actually going to be important regardless of whether they're in first or not. But clearly it's going to be incredibly important if there is first place on the line.
My prediction for the playoff game, this isn't really that hot of a take, but my prediction for the playoff game, whether it's a play-in game or a quarterfinal, there will be fans sitting in the upper deck.
I agree. I'm full.
They're going to open that puppy up.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of shocked they haven't for this game just because they've already sold out with so many days. So I'm actually wondering if more tickets will open up on game day just to see what the draw is. But yeah, I would not disagree with that, and it would be awesome to see because that would be a full-blown NBA atmosphere. And you heard Chad. He said this atmosphere, from his experience, is better than a lot of NBA atmospheres. So rip out the curtain on the upper bowl and put 10,000 plus in there. Woo, buddy. Woo. It's going to be fun.
There's also still a large chunk of people who don't realize how short the season is, right? Like I've had several people say to me like, oh yeah, I plan to go to a Sea Bears game. I'm like, well, you better buy your ticket right now because they have one, if not, well, two now, but they have one or two games left playing at home. And people are like, oh my goodness, really? Oh shoot, I didn't know that. So once people are kind of more educated on the league and how short it is and stuff, I mean, the demand is just going to go even higher. Like you'd think, okay, year one, this might be as good as it gets kind of thing. But no, I think year two, they're going to keep up this momentum, and they might even be selling even more tickets. So I know we're kind of beating a dead horse. We've talked about this a lot, but in a way, I still feel like it's almost not talked about enough, just how quickly this is all picked up and stuff. So I mean, just as an example, I was at Valor FC practice earlier today. And actually, you were at the last game, so there you go. Perfect conversation right there. But they're entering year 5, and they still haven't even sniffed the playoffs. This year, they're a second last place team in the league. They're scoring the fewest goals in the league. They're the only team other than expansion, Vancouver FC, who has never finished a season at the top half of the table before. Like the Red River Rising, Valor's fan club, it's dwindling because these people have been coming to game after game, year after year, and just seeing a losing product. And the environment at those games is suffering big time. And it was kind of a similar setup too, right? Because Sea Bears, they're playing in an arena people thought was too big, and Valor's playing in a stadium that's obviously way too big. But it just kind of shows how important winning is. Right, because this Valor product, it's kind of fallen down to the wayside a little bit, and the Sea Bears, they're the hottest act in town. That's the team people are talking about. That's the clothing, the shirts that people are wearing down the street now, which is crazy to think about. So, winning obviously plays a very big factor in that.
Hey, and nothing's guaranteed, right? Like that's the thing. This team is good. There's a lot of turnaround in this league. Who knows if this happens again next year, right? Go out and enjoy it. If you haven't gotten your ticket or haven't seen a game, get the playoff ticket because it'll be your last chance. As of right now, the last home game of the season, which is Saturday, July 29th against the Edmonton Stingers, is sold out unless they release more tickets. But it's a sellout, so get that playoff game. It will be your last chance. We've seen the Bombers. They've been dominant, these last few years, like 4 years, whatever it's been, minus the COVID year that the CFL didn't play. The Gold Eyes have been competitive forever. This year they've been struggling a little bit, but they're coming around. Anyway, I digress on Gold Eyes baseball. But this is a team that is doing well. If you haven't gone, it's fun. I've been fortunate enough to be the sideline reporter and experience every game and the atmosphere. It's been a blast. You've been on a reporter row, so we know firsthand. But yeah, it's been great. Big game on Saturday. This has been probably our longest episode so far, Taylor, so we're going to wrap it up. But thank you. If you've listened this far, thank you so much for listening again. Wherever you're getting this podcast, subscribe, rate it, share it with your friends. We love having the listeners. To our American listeners that have started coming along in Ohio and Nebraska and California, welcome aboard. All your college guys are playing here, so hey, man, tell your friends. Teddy Allen out in Nebraska, New Mexico State, wherever. Hey, man, Teddy Allen's having a good year. Follow up here. But no, thank you so much for joining Target Score Weekly. Enjoy your week. We'll see you Saturday, and we'll have a new episode for you next week. Taylor, thanks again. We'll see you next week, buddy.
Peace out, man.
Thank you for listening to the Target Score Weekly podcast. To stay up to date with Winnipeg Sea Bears and CEBL news, as well as future episode releases, follow Joey and Taylor on Twitter and Instagram at TaylorAllen31 and at Joey Slattery CTV. And wherever you're getting the podcast, be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode.